Welcome everyone. Today I'm gonna discuss about inequality. Inequality is very important to reduce inequalities. Because of COVID-19, there are a lot of challenges around the world, lot of things happening around the world. So we have to be very much careful about these challenging things. Our major challenging thing is uh, inequality. And remember, these inequalities come from different area, come from different places. Especially for women empowerment, this is very important. And I am trying to discuss about inequality. According to the International Poverty Line, people are considered to be extreme poverty if they live on the less than 1.9 per dollar or the equivalent amount after converting currencies and adjusted for the price difference between countries. This is the definition used by the World Bank and many other international institutions. About 700 million people in the world live below these low thresholds, and about 4.7 billion people lives on less than $10 per day. People living in extreme poverty are concentrated in certain region. The country where you happen to be broken makes a huge difference to your expected living standard. Note in the interactive versions of this map, you can use the sliders at the bottom to show estimates for 1 year. If we focus on intensity of the poverty, we see a similar patterns. The countries where a large share of the people live in extreme poverty are also the countries where people tend to have the large shortfall from the poverty line. The poverty gap is largest in these countries. In other hands, people below the international poverty line tend to have much worse living standards in the low-income countries. In our map charts, you can click on any countries to display the time series estimate in a line chart. We can reduce poverty. It is important to remember that despite the magnitudes of the challenges, poverty is not avoidable. So, in many aspects, poverty actually create many challenging point of views for us. In 1820, there were just under 1.1 billion people in the world, of which more than 1 billion people live in extreme poverty. Over the next 150 years, the decline of poverty was not just fast enough to offset the very rapid rise of world population. So the number of non-poor and poor people increased. Since around 1970s, however, we are living in a world in which the number of people who are not living in extreme poverty is rising, while the number of people who are living in the extreme poverty is falling. In fact, in today, rich countries, a large shares of the population live in the extreme poverty until fair recently. Actually, in most of these countries, the majority of the population live in the extreme deprivations only a few generations ago. Congress was made at a fast pace, in some case even a constant pace. And this pace progress is not only about income moving marginally above the extreme poverty line. In recent decade, the global poverty rate has been going down independently of whether we set the poverty line at 1.9 or $10 per day. The experience of China is remarkable in this respect. In 1984, more than two-thirds of the population live in extreme poverty, and over the countries of just one generation, the share is extreme poverty declined to less than 2%. You can explore 10 by country using the option changes country in the interaction versions of these charts, and you can also toggle the option relatives to show total poverty headache figures. We should reduce poverty. There is no empirical evidence to support the romantics idea that people lived in extreme material deprivation are satisfied with their standard of living. The Goal Up World Poll asked people around the world what they thought about their standard of living, not only about their income. The following chart compares the answer of the people in different countries with the average income in those countries. It shows that, broadly speaking, people live in the poorest countries tend to be less satisfied with their living standard. And there is a small, similar correlations in the term of subjective well-being, as this chart shows low-income countries tend to have low self-reported life satisfaction, and richer people within these countries tend to have their high self-reported life satisfaction. How can we reduce poverty? Poverty is complex. It's not just about monetary incomes. The church shows proxy of multi-dimensional poverty, where tens thousands level indicators of deprivations in the context of education, health, and living standard. As we can see, monetary and multi-dimensional poverty are related, but clearly not one and the same. But higher income do make a huge difference to living standard. It's no coincidence that in the last decades, when we have reduced poverty globally, we have also witnessed important income growth. Indeed, the correlation between GDP per capita and extreme poverty is clear, both across countries are any point in same, as well as within the countries across time. This connected scattered plot shows country level change in the GDP per heads and poverty rates over time, specifically over the period, specifically in the sliders. You can move the mix on the slide to change the length of the time windows for which changes are plotted when the beginning and end makes coincides. The charts plot a traditional cross selection scattered plot. Social policy and direct household level support to make an important differentiations. Social policy is important both because it can contribute to promote income growth and become because it often make the wait for growth less painful. Economics seems to have very little useful to say about why some countries growth and over other do not, given what economic growth requires manpower and brain power. It's plausible, however, that whenever that spark occur, it is more likely to catch fire if women and men are properly educated, well-fed, and healthy, and if criticized, feel secure and confident enough to invest in their children and to let them leave home to get the new jobs in the city. It is also probably true that until that happens, sometimes need to be done to make things that wait for the spark more bearable. So this is some of the source of data where how we can reduce poverty and how we can take some sort of initiative. So now we will do some group discussion. Angela, what is the present conditions in Africa, especially if we want to discuss about poverty reduction? How does it work in Africa?
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Mr. President. In my opinion, Africa, we have been lagging quite behind on when it comes to poverty reduction. And I would say we have quite a number of reasons which lead to this. Our political willpower is not good enough to empower our communities so that our communities could be self-reliant. And then we also lack political willpower in terms of policy formations, whereby you find that the community on the ground, they are quite hardworking. They are going out of their way to do socio-economic activities, but then you have poor infrastructure in terms of connecting them to the markets where they can sell their goods so that they are lifted up economically. Again, we have corruption, which is thriving deep in our societies. And again, this is also not been tackled well with our political leaders. We also do have cultures which really pull us back, whereby you have the girl child is not like more motivated to or given equal chances like their male counterparts. So this really drags the most of the communities behind. That is the overview of what I've practically seen in our African continent. Thank you.
Okay, Udiwangi, what is the situation, especially women empowerments in Africa? Christine, Christine. Okay, one important aspect that we need to take lot of economic initiative. What does economic initiative mean? Economic initiative means like how you can empower women. You have to make them economically successful. You have to make them uh, different area. They have to take initiative. That is the reason that when we take this initiative, our major objective how we can empower women, we can give them job opportunities, we can create job opportunity for women. So when they can economically solvent, they can take lot of initiative, they can they can measure it and they can make it more successful. So this is some of our objective. Beside that, like Angela, like what do you think? How we can solve uh, this poverty-related problem?
Thank you, Mr. President. Like I mentioned earlier, it all starts with our policy makers. That is the political leaders that we elect to the high offices. For example, we can put in place policies which could really cover across board the the all communities so that they are economically empowered. And then we can also try to tame corruption in all manner of sorts so that we try to develop like our rural areas, because most of the time you find that most of the communities which are doing quite poorly are actually in the rural areas. So the government can really try to work on the infrastructures and policies that can bring up these communities up and then link them up even with markets where they can be selling their produce after they they produce them. And again, education should not be really set apart for male counterparts. So girl child should also be empowered, because when you empower the girl child, you will have empowered the whole community. So I think those are some of the issues maybe they can try and do to help uh, alleviate the poverty levels. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Christine, uh, what you want to share about women empowerment situation in Africa and how actually economic solvency can help them? Christine, I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Alex, can you hear me? Mr. Alex, can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. President. I can hear you very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Can you share with me about the present economic condition in Africa and how we can reduce poverty?
Well, it's rather clear that Africa has been having challenges economically in terms of the economy in almost all the spheres, uh, all the areas in the field. But there are several ways that we can, as African governments, can do so that they can be able to reduce this situation. And I'm just thinking of first partnering with the global community, and then making sure that a lot more people are educated and they get exposure. And perhaps in the beginning, that's where I will start from. Thank you, President.
Thank you. What do you think? How we can solve this poverty-related problem?
Well, in terms of solutions, yeah, as I indicated earlier, if we can partner with if Africa can partner with the other governments across the globe, let's say in exchange of knowledge and just improving in terms of the technology, improving in terms of agriculture, then African can go a long way in improving its unfortunate situation that is there at the moment. And more so, and we reduce corruption that is quite rampant in very many other areas. And yeah, essentially, those are the areas that most leaders can look into so that they can be able to improve economically. Thank you.
Thank you. Uh, okay, this is very good brainstorming session. I want to say, Madam Angela, what type of strategy we can take for women in Africa for reduce poverty?
Thank you, Mr. President. Uh, in my view, the women need to be more empowered through education, and this could be achieved through proper policies which governments put in place to make sure the ratio of the girl child and the boy child, or the women and men selected into educational facilities, colleges, for example, and universities, is like either 50-50 or probably more, because most of the ladies kind of shy away because they really don't have enough muscles to fight for these positions like their male counterparts. And then secondly, I think governments also need to go out there and run campaigns and try to educate and give information out there so that the women out there know of what they have in place or what is there that they can use at their disposal to empower themselves or to make themselves better. Because some of the countries are trying very much, like to partner with UNICEF and other non-governmental organizations, but then there's not enough information out there that these people out there to help. So most of the people are not even aware that they can have such facilities or they have these facilities at their disposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is really great sessions. I want to say that you need to improve yourself with reading, writing, listening, and spoken. See you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, bye bye, and take care.
Thank you.